On a hot July morning in the late 1920s, an Iceman pulls his wagon up to an apartment window and glances up at a cardboard sign. The number facing the street is 100. That indicates the family upstairs needs 100 pounds of ice. He climbs aboard the cart, removes the cover, and inserts a pair of hefty metal tongs into the slick block. Then he heaves it onto his shoulder and goes for the building. Blocks weighing up to 100 pounds were a common feature of domestic ice delivery. The initial flight is narrow, the second is darker. By the third, meltwater is dripping from his clothes and the block is moving on his back. He cannot simply rush. A wrong step may send 100 pounds of ice down the steps. However, he cannot move slowly either. Every minute he spends on his shoulder means the product disappears. And when he finally gets to the kitchen, there is only one delivery. There may be many more before the path is complete. Before electric refrigerators became common household appliances, keeping food cold necessitated a human supply chain that stretched from frozen lakes and ice factories to city streets, back staircases, and wooden kitchen boxes. The refrigerator replaced a machine. It also replaced the man who climbed the stairs. A typical urban ice route starts early, before the heat of the day sets in and many clients have eaten their meal. The Iceman reports to the company's ice house or distribution station. In previous decades, much of the supply could have started months earlier on frozen ponds and lakes, where workmen chopped winter ice into big blocks and put them into insulated ice houses. Railroads and ships transported massive quantities to cities. By the early 20th century, mechanically made ice had joined, and in many cases replaced, natural ice as a commercial supply. For the deliverymen, the source is less important than what is waiting at the depot, large blocks that must be frozen long enough to reach clients. His vehicle may still be horse-drawn, particularly in the early part of the time, or it may be a motor truck. In any case, the load must be insulated from heat to the greatest extent possible. However, nothing can totally stop the melting process. This assigns the route a strange kind of deadline. A baker can carry bread throughout the morning without the loaves shrinking in the cart. Every day, an Iceman starts with merchandise that is rapidly melting. He inspects his route and tools. The most critical tool is the ice tong, which has two metal arms that bite into opposite sides of a block and tighten as the weight pulls downward. With the tongs, he can drag, lift, and manage ice that is too slick to handle safely with his bare hands. Heavy metal tongs were usual for house deliveries. Aprons, pads, or heavy material were used by delivery men to protect themselves from the wet block. None of this makes the load lighter. The wagon rolls into the neighborhood. The Iceman now begins to peek out the windows. Long before an app could plan a grocery delivery, a piece of cardboard informed the Iceman about what a household need. Customers put an ice card in a window that the route man could see from the street. Surviving 1920s cards gave quantities of 25, 50, 75, or 100 pounds. The number displayed facing the street indicated to the Iceman how large a block the household desired. That tiny card arranged an entire workday. A 25-pound order may indicate an easy halt. A 100-pound order could result in a far more difficult carry. A row of cards on the same block may empty a significant portion of the wagon before he reaches the next neighborhood. However, the card also shows something simple to overlook regarding the icebox. Cold was not continuous. A modern refrigerator produces cold as long as it is powered and in functioning order. An icebox only borrowed cold from a melting block. When the ice supply had run out, the household required another delivery. Inside the house, the icebox was typically a wooden cabinet coated with metal and insulated with materials like cork, sawdust, straw, or even seaweed. The block was in a chamber at the top. As the ice absorbed heat and melted, cooler air flowed via the food sections. Milk, eggs, dairy items, produce, meat, and leftovers could be kept cool without being placed directly on ice. So the number in the window is more than just a request for something refreshing on a hot day. It is part of the household food system. The Iceman comes to a halt beneath the first structure, checks his card, and selects the block. The nice image of an antique delivery wagon comes to an end. The actual job begins at the stairs. A block of ice is a difficult load since practically everything about it works against the man carrying it. It's heavy, it's wet, its edges pressed on the body, and it becomes more slippery as the day goes warmer. The Iceman secures the tongs to the block and raises. For a large order, he uses his body to guide the weight onto his shoulder, rather than attempting to keep the entire load away from him. Then he walks. A single-family home with an accessible back entry is one thing. Another example is a city apartment located many levels above street level. The path does not pause because the building lacks an elevator. He climbs service stairs, navigates tight landings, passes residents, and avoids striking walls with the ice. Meltwater rushes down steps that may already be slippery. His most important physical skill is not simply strength. It is about equilibrium. The block must remain near to his body so that he can control it. The metal tongs must remain seated. During a landing, he may need to halt and rearrange himself without losing the burden. Then he gets to the kitchen. In some homes, the icebox is purposefully located near a rear entrance or kitchen access point, because this delivery must be made repeatedly. The renovated Kennedy family home from 1917, for example, sets the icebox next to an alcove that leads straight to the back door. The Iceman opens the upper compartment and guides the new block in. If yesterday's ice has not completely melted, the fresh piece must fit within what remains. The chilly water quickly begins its next journey. According to the design, water accumulates in a drip pan or flows through a drain system when the ice melts. If there is a pan, someone in the household must empty it. Nothing about the system is automated. The Iceman provides the chill. The family manages its disappearance. He shuts the box, enters any delivery or payment information the company asks, and returns to the stairs. His shoulder is lighter. The wagon isn't. By mid-morning, the Iceman's path has become a recurring cycle of reading, judging, lifting, carrying, and going on. However, repetition does not imply a lack of variation. One customer wants 25 pounds. Another wants 50. A restaurant, boarding house, butcher, seafood dealer, or other business may require significantly more space than a tiny home. Someone calls him after he has died. Another client claims that the prior block was removed too quickly. At the next stop, the ice compartment is just large enough to hold what was ordered. Man becomes familiar with buildings because it saves work. He discovers which entrance provides the shortest carry, which staircase curves sharply, which customer puts the icebox near the back door, and which apartment necessitates a long walk after the ascent. He also learns the neighborhood's rhythm. This is one of the reasons why the Iceman has become such a well-known urban icon. He did not make one-time deliveries. He returned because the merchandise provided its own replacement. The ice melted. The consumer required him again. Heat provides more pressure. The hotter the weather, the more valuable the household's cold supply is, and the faster the load melts. That means that the days when people most need ice may also be the most difficult to give. When a route requires more than one man, the driver and helper must keep the wagon going. A block subjected to heat loses weight, which cannot be given. As a result, the Iceman has to operate against two clocks: the route schedule, Also, consider the weather. The path also demonstrates why the claim that Iceman kept cities chilly is not an exaggeration. Household kitchens have only one layer. Grocers require cold storage for perishable items. Butchers and seafood merchants require it. Restaurants and boarding houses consume more ice. Since the 18th century, railroad refrigerator carriages have used ice blocks to safeguard food shipments, resulting in a cold chain that extends far beyond the domestic kitchen. The same basic issue arises every place. When the cold supply quits, food begins to reheat. That means that a delayed delivery can be more than just a nuisance in the summer. A family cannot turn the dial and wait for the compressor to restart. A shopkeeper cannot produce another 100-pound block behind the counter. The cold has to come from somewhere else. The Iceman represents the final human link in the chain. The most advanced ice house in the city cannot cool milk from 4 floors above the street. So he continues rising. The customer sees the last 100 feet from street to kitchen. He doesn't see the bigger picture. Natural ice had to be harvested when winter made it available, extracted from lakes and ponds, stored, insulated against months of warmer weather, and then brought to where it would be sold. Commercial ice houses were basically warehouses designed to solve a single problem: lose as little ice as possible before the summer. Sawdust, straw, and other insulating materials reduced heat transfer. Blocks were stored away for the warmer months. Rail connections were important because metropolitan clients could enjoy ice collected many miles away. Then man-made ice altered the system. Mechanical refrigeration enabled businesses to freeze water near the cities that required it. This minimized reliance on winter harvests and enabled ice production in areas where the climate did not support a reliable natural crop. However, one thing remained constant: the household still had an icebox. A factory might create the block instead of a frozen pond. Someone still needed to carry the block through the customer's door. For the Iceman, technical advancements initially preserved his job. It gave him another supply of ice to deliver. That is a historical reversal at the heart of the profession. The first refrigeration machinery did not eliminate the root worker. It nourished his wagon. By afternoon, the root has been written on the Iceman's body. His clothing are soaked with meltwater and sweat. His hands had spent hours handling metal instruments and slippery surfaces. The same shoulder has accepted loads that would be considered serious labor even once. The job encourages efficient movement because any needless motion causes tiredness. An expert rootman fights the block only when absolutely necessary. He uses the tongs for grip, maintains the weight close, and learns how to pivot a landing without letting the ice to swing away from his body. Experience cannot render the load harmless. A fallen block might hurt the carry or anybody below him. Metal tongs and cutting tools require attention. Wet flooring and staircases increase the risk of sliding. Summer heat causes tiredness, yet the load itself feels excruciatingly cold on the body, and the Iceman has to enter other people's space while carrying everything. He passes through kitchens, back doors, apartment corridors, storefronts, and service entrances. Customers want him to be quick, clean, trustworthy, and conscientious about their houses. This generates a service-related contradiction. The labor is physically demanding. The consumer expects the delivery to leave virtually no trace. There are no damaged walls. There is no dirty track across the kitchen. There are no broken blocks. There was no complaint. The root may provide anything in return. While houses rely on ice boxes, ice is a regular purchase. A solid root provides a delivery worker with repeat customers and an identifiable location in the area. He learns the names, habits, buildings, and daily geography of a few streets with remarkable accuracy. However, Each block offers a warning about the future. If households ever learn to produce their own cold, the relationship will end quickly. By the late 1920s, the future was already present in appliance showrooms. The machine that didn't melt. Early residential electric refrigerators had been around since the 1910s, but they were still too expensive for most families. Then technology improved. Manufacturers began marketing something that the Icebox could never provide: cold without delivery. In 1927, General Electric produced a hugely popular refrigerator, part of a wave of gadgets that made mechanical household refrigeration more feasible and apparent. The sales argument targeted the Iceman system at its weakest spot. A refrigerator didn't require a card in the window. It did not follow a route schedule. It did not result in a block shrinking over the afternoon. There was no 100-pound load coming up the steps. The drip pan was not filled simply because the source of cold had disappeared. There's no need to be concerned that the Iceman will arrive after the home has needed him. As prices plummeted and electrification spread, refrigerator ownership increased throughout the 1930s. By the end of the decade, mechanical refrigerators were installed in around 60% of American homes, though the transition remained unequal. Rural areas with poor electrification tended to use outdated cooling systems for much longer. The effect spread backward through the entire ice delivery industry. First, one household stopped displaying its card. Then another. A route that had supported a full wagon has empty stretches between customers. Fewer household stops resulted in fewer delivery employment. Fewer routes reduced the requirement for neighborhood distribution centers. Natural ice harvesting had already lost ground to manufactured ice. Now, artificial ice was losing one of its most common everyday markets. Commercial ice has not disappeared. Food transportation, fishing, commerce, recreation, and other applications survived. What vanished was the notion that a typical kitchen required a man to bring cold through the door. The Iceman hadn't failed. The service he offered had become so important that inventors spent decades devising a means to permanently install it within the home. The remaining thing is nearly impossibly little: a cardboard ice card. 25, 50, 75, 100. Once, showing the correct number toward the street, could call a worker carrying the day's refrigerator on his shoulder. The card connected a kitchen and a delivery wagon, the vehicle for an ice house or factory. And the ice house evolved into an industry centered on preventing frozen water from turning liquid before it could be used. Today, when you open a refrigerator door, cold is simply there. A thermostat senses temperature. A compressor operates. The cabinet cools again. Nobody outside the house needs to notice. That convenience eliminated an entire daily routine. There is no wagon stopping at the curb. There are no tongs biting into a block. There's no meltwater running down a man's shoulder. There are no wet footprints through the back entrance. There is no worker standing in the street, peering up at an upper window, calculating how much weight is waiting for him. The vintage icebox in a museum may resemble the earliest version of a refrigerator. However, the cabinet was simply the final component of a much larger machine. The missing component was the Iceman. Every morning, he provided the one thing the box could never produce for itself: cold.